on it, all about how to actually build on this stuff. And I gotta say, I was really intrigued by this idea of suspended foundations using eco concrete beams.
Oh yeah, those are pretty fascinating.
From what I saw, it sounds like they could save you money, maybe even make your house quieter. But before we get into all that, maybe you can break down why black cotton soil is such a pain to build on in the first place.
Well, think of it this way. It's a type of clay, but it acts kind of like a sponge. So when it's dry, it shrinks.
Mm.
Here's the kicker. When it gets wet, it absorbs all that water and just swells up like
Oh,
crazy.
wow. I can see how that'd be a problem.
Yeah, puts a ton of pressure on anything you build on top of it.
So, not exactly ideal for a foundation then, huh?
Not at all. That constant expanding and contracting, it can cause all sorts of issues. Cracks in the foundation, uneven settling, could even lead to, serious structural damage.
Yikes. That sounds like a nightmare.
It can be. And on top of all that, black cotton soil just doesn't have a lot of load-bearing capacity. We're talking maybe 4 to 6 tons per square meter.
Oh, wow. So, even adding a second story to a house could be risky.
Yeah, exactly. Traditional foundations, they just aren't really built for that kind of movement. You try to anchor the house to this soil,
Mm.
and you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, cracked walls, doors that won't close, sloping floors. Not a good picture.
Exactly. A homeowner's worst nightmare. So what can you do? Well, that's where these suspended foundations come in.
Suspended foundations. You're talking about instead of digging down deep, you kind of lift the house up.
Exactly. It's like building a house on stilts. You raise the foundation above the ground,
Mm.
use columns, and you completely bypass that top layer of soil.
So the house is basically floating above the shifting ground.
In a way, yeah. And the great thing is you avoid those cracks, the uneven settling, and you even get some extra benefits on top of that.
Oh, like what?
Well, for one, think of the cost of digging, especially if you have to go deep.
Yeah.
Below 1.5 meters, it gets really expensive. Suspended foundations, they can save you a lot of money there.
That makes sense. Less digging, less money. I also read about something called beam and block flooring. They called it BBF. Is that part of this suspended foundation thing?
It is, yeah. And it's super efficient. You use these precast concrete beams and blocks, fit them together kind of like a giant puzzle, and boom, you've got your flooring. No need for all that formwork and waiting for concrete to cure.
So faster construction times, too. That's a big plus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And speaking of efficiency and strength, that brings us to those eco-concrete beams you mentioned earlier. They're really the heart of these suspended foundations.
Yeah, they seemed pretty high tech from what I saw.
They are. The core of these beams is made of high tensile steel wires.
Yeah.
They're stretched or pre-tensioned, before the concrete is even poured around them.
So you're saying the steel is already ready to resist all that pressure from the soil?
Exactly. And the concrete they use, it's Class 60. Really strong, durable stuff. They're super serious about quality control, too.
Yep.
Every step of the way, pouring, curing, everything's monitored.
Wow, even the curing takes like 2 weeks, right?
Yep, 14 days. That's how you ensure each beam is as strong and resilient as possible. You get a foundation that can actually stand the test of time, even on black cotton soil.
Okay, so we've got the money-saving aspect, the faster construction time, and now we're talking super durable foundations. You also mentioned something about these houses being quieter, right?
Oh yeah, that's another big perk.
Yeah.
That design, with the house lifted up and those solid concrete beams, it actually creates a natural sound barrier.
Wow, so stronger, more stable, and quieter. That's amazing.
Yeah. And on top of all that, you can save up to 40% on your foundation costs because of those efficient materials and building techniques.
That's incredible. It sounds like they've really turned a problem into an opportunity.
Absolutely. It's all about working smarter, not harder.
I love that. But it makes me wonder, could this kind of technology be used in other places? Not just on black cotton soil.
It absolutely could.
Yeah.
And that's something we'll delve into more deeply in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, I'm already intrigued. This is getting good.
It is. There's a lot more to uncover. So
Yeah.
stay tuned. It really is amazing how widely applicable this type of foundation could be.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. It makes me think about the people who actually live in these areas with black cotton soil, like Kenya.
Yeah.
How has this soil affected their lives, their communities?
That's a really important point. In many parts of Kenya, this soil has been a major challenge for a long time, generations even.
Hmm.
Traditional building methods, they just haven't been able to keep up with the way the soil moves.
So it's not just a minor annoyance, it's a real problem for people.
Oh, absolutely. It can have a huge impact on people's lives, their finances.
Mm.
There have been cases where houses have become completely unlivable because of all the cracks and the instability. Imagine losing your home because of the soil.
That's just awful. It really puts the need for these new solutions into perspective. Like those suspended foundations we were talking about, they could be a game changer.
Exactly. And it's not just about fixing the problem now, it's about making sure these communities are more resilient in the future.
That's a great point. And speaking of resilience, you mentioned earlier that these suspended foundations can help regulate temperature. Could you explain how that works?
Sure. So when you raise the house up, you create this air buffer underneath. It acts like natural insulation.
Oh, I see.
So you end up needing less heating and cooling, which can save you a lot of money on energy bills.
And it's better for the environment, too. That's fantastic.
Exactly. It's a win-win. And in places with extreme temperatures, like parts of Kenya, that can make a huge difference in how comfortable and affordable it is to live in a home.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, we keep talking about these eco-concrete beams, and they sound fantastic. But what makes them so eco-friendly? What's special about how they're made?
So it's not just about the materials themselves, it's about the whole manufacturing process. They use sustainable practices,
Oh,
like using recycled materials in the concrete mix, or focusing on saving water and energy during production.
so it's a more holistic approach, thinking about the environment every step of the way.
Exactly. And when you combine those eco-friendly practices with the strength and durability of these beams, you get a building material that's good for the environment and built to last.
I like that. You know, beyond all the practical stuff we've been talking about, it seems like there's a psychological benefit to these suspended foundations, too.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, imagine living in a place where you're worried about the ground shifting beneath your home. These suspended foundations, they offer a sense of stability, a peace of mind that you just wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely. It's about creating a sense of security, a place where you feel safe and grounded.
And that's something that everyone deserves. You know, we were talking about other places where these suspended foundations could be used. You mentioned areas with seismic activity, like earthquake zones.
Right, because that flexibility in the foundation, it lets the structure kind of move with the earth during an earthquake. So less risk of serious damage.
So it's not just about slow, gradual soil movement. It can also handle sudden, powerful forces.
Yeah, exactly. And then think about places that are prone to flooding. If you lift the house up above flood levels, you're protecting it from water damage and keeping the people inside safe.
That's a huge deal, especially with climate change and rising sea levels. These kinds of adaptable technologies seem more important than ever.
They really are. And we're just scratching the surface of what's possible. Think about steep hillsides. Imagine building on those without having to disrupt the environment as much. You could create some amazing architecture.
Or even in remote areas where building is really difficult and expensive.
Exactly. The possibilities are endless. And it all comes back to working with nature, not fighting against it.
You know, it's really exciting to think about how this technology is not just solving problems, but opening up all these new ways of thinking about how and where we build.
Absolutely. It's pushing the boundaries of what's possible in construction and architecture. And it shows how challenging situations can lead to amazing innovation.
I love that. You know, it seems like with some creativity and determination, we can overcome almost any obstacle.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this journey of discovery so amazing. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to face, and new horizons to explore.
This has been a real eye-opener for me. We started by talking about this soil problem in Kenya, and now we're talking about the future of building on a global scale.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, doesn't it?
It does. It all started with a crone about black cotton soil, and now we're envisioning cities of the future built on these suspended foundations. Cities that are resilient to disasters, energy efficient, and in harmony with nature.
It's amazing what human ingenuity can accomplish. And who knows what other incredible solutions are out there waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. There's always something new to learn, a new challenge to take on. And I truly believe that with a little creativity and a lot of hard work, we can create a world where our buildings are not just functional and sustainable, but also truly inspiring.
I completely agree. It's about thinking outside the box, pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible, and never stopping questioning.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. But before we do, I have one final thought-provoking question for our listener.
I'm all ears.
Imagine a world where every building is designed with resilience, sustainability, and comfort in mind. What would your dream home look like in that world? What role would innovative technologies like suspended foundations play in making that dream a reality?
Those are incredible questions to think about. It's a challenge to our listeners to imagine a better future and to think about how they can be a part of creating it.
Exactly. So keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. The future of building is in our hands. And who knows, maybe someday we'll all be living in those incredible, resilient, and inspiring homes we're imagining today.
That's a future I'm definitely excited to be a part of.
Me too. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those foundations strong. It's amazing to think about how much we've covered just by talking about foundations.
It really shows how everything's connected, doesn't it? From the soil to these bigger challenges we're facing, and how innovation can help.
We really have gone deep on this one, Her. From black cotton soil all the way to how suspended foundations could change construction everywhere. But before I finish up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about those suspended homes being like soundproof sanctuaries. What did you mean by that?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. It's not just about blocking out noise, it's about creating a space where you can really feel at peace, you know, like a retreat from all the craziness of everyday life, a place to relax, recharge, and just feel that sense of calm.
That sounds amazing, especially these days when everything's so hectic. It's like creating your own little oasis.
Exactly, and it actually connects to this whole idea of biophilic design, bringing elements of nature into the places we build.
So, are you saying these suspended foundations, because they lift the house up and separate it from the ground, that they could make a building more biophilic?
Yeah, that's the idea. By creating that separation, you get this transition zone, a space for nature to kind of flow through. You might get more natural light, better airflow, and you're more connected to the landscape around you.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, it's more than just a technical solution, it's a whole design approach that puts people and nature first.
That's it, exactly. And that's what I find so exciting about the future of building, the chance to create places that are not just practical and sustainable, but also places that make us feel good, that inspire us.
I'm totally with you on that. You've given our listeners a lot to consider today about suspended foundations, sustainable design, even this biophilic design. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just keep exploring, keep asking questions, and don't forget about all the possibilities out there. The world of building is always changing, and we have so many chances to create a better, more sustainable future for everyone.
I love that. And with that, I think it's time to end this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey, everyone. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired